He's my friend. So was I.
Hey guys, I'm Philip Molina, and oh my god, that trailer and that footage, and I've been waiting for this for so long, and yes, looking at it, it looks amazing, but also, it's like, why are mommy and daddy fighting? Is it something I did? Like, don't you feel terrible seeing the end and they hate each other? And like, in the comics, it was really easy to pick a side between Cap and Iron Man, because in the comics, Tony Stark is a douche during Civil War, but here, with these actual people on screen, and I like them both so much, I'm just totally torn. So, to completely distract myself from picking a side, I'm going to ignore that angst of superhero divorce, and instead I'm going to break down this trailer. I'm going to try to point out anything that I can, analyze some moments, some Easter eggs, and maybe just highlight anything that you might have missed. If you consider rumors and speculation to be spoilers, then yeah, spoilers are on the way. But it's basically just going to be a lot of me guessing. Anyway, let's get right into it.
Buck, do you remember me?
Your mom's name is Sarah.
Right off the bat, we get a little bit more of that scene that we initially saw as the post-credits scene from Ant-Man.
I know a guy.
And this is just adding on to that. And if you stitch the two scenes together, you realize that Bucky's in a lot of trouble because some people are hunting him, thinking he did some terrible thing that he claims he didn't do, but you know, it's still in addition to the terrible things that he did do. Because if you remember, as Winter Soldier, the guy was an assassin for Hydra and killed tons of people for decades. So you can kind of understand why some people are thinking, yeah, maybe he's not a good guy. Of course, Cap is maybe the only person that still sees him as a good guy, and you can tell that he's very forgiving about this guy, because when he asks Bucky if he remembers him, Bucky's response is basically, I remember your mama?
Your mom's name is Sarah.
That is a good friendship. It's also worth mentioning that in the Ant-Man version of this scene, Cap is actually suggesting that they call Tony Stark.
If we call Tony,
No, he won't believe us.
So I guess, at least in this moment, they don't totally hate each other.
you're a wanted man.
So as we move a little forward, we've got some chaos after a huge explosion, and did you notice what was getting blown up? Like, take a look at that shot again on the podium there. That looks a lot like the UN logo, making this some sort of UN committee meeting. Now, as we covered in our What's Not Gonna Be in Civil War video, we know that this movie is not gonna feature the huge inciting incident from the comic books known as the Stanford incident, where a freaking elementary school gets wiped out by a huge explosion, but wiping out part of the UN assembly could also probably be a major inciting incident too. Probably big enough to cause some major friction, and also, you gotta wonder if this is what people think that Bucky might have done. Yeah, it makes sense that they're hunting him.
I don't do that anymore.
Well, the people who think you did are coming right now. And they're not planning on taking you alive.
Moving on, we get a glimpse of the team that may or may not be the ones after Bucky, but they're definitely storming some sort of highly guarded compound, having taken out some security guards already. And if you're really eagle-eyed, you might have noticed who else is in there with them. Right there, X on his chest. That's Crossbones, aka Brock Rumlow, one of the villains of this movie. And we've actually met him before. He was the guy who turned out to be Hydra during Winter Soldier, and then he gets his whole body like smushed, and yet somehow he still comes back, and he's probably deadlier than ever. As Bucky and Cap fight some dudes, you can see that it says Polizei on their chest, which is German for police, and the significance of that, well, we actually don't see him, but the movie's big bad guy, which, yes, I know it's ridiculous, there's another huge villain in this movie that we haven't even seen, he's Baron Zemo, who is from Germany. So logic would imply that something about being in Germany is gonna connect us to Zemo. Then Bucky makes his big escape, and we're into the Marvel logo, and the only thing I want to point out before we move on is how surprisingly focused this trailer has been on Bucky. We now know that's because the Russo brothers, who are the guys making this film, they wanted to find a way to tell the Civil War story, but not make it just about two different political ideologies that Captain America and Iron Man don't agree on. Instead, they wanted to make it a very personal story for Captain America. And now we can see it's clear, this is not an Avengers movie, this is a Captain America movie, which is why instead they're exploring themes of loyalty and betrayal between not just a soldier and his government, but between groups of friends. That's good stuff.
Captain, while a great many people see you as a hero, there are some who'd prefer the word vigilante. You've operated with unlimited power and no supervision. That's something the world can no longer tolerate.
Then we get our first glimpse of General Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross, who we haven't seen in 8 freaking years. And what's awesome about his appearance is that it actually firmly connects now the Incredible Hulk movie to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They weren't totally actually connected before. It's also great to see him because William Hurt isn't just great in this role. His character, if he keeps showing up, will eventually turn into Red Hulk, and that's amazing. That'd be great. Also, rumor has it that Thunderbolt Ross is more of a Secretary of State type these days, which is a position that deals much more with our country's relationships around the globe. That's significant because in the comics, the Superhero Registration Act is something local to the United States, and characters could just escape it by going to Canada or France. But this story is taking things much more global. We saw that a second ago with the German police, and then we're seeing that again here where Bucky disappears in either a Spanish or Italian speaking country, and finally we see it with the Sokovia Accords themselves. That's a UN logo, which means these accords are basically global law. Also different from the comics, in them the act is more about superheroes revealing their secret identities to the US government, but here with this set of accords it seems like it's more about taking away superhero independence. It's the UN that cares and not just the US government now, because Sokovia, if you remember, is the Eastern European country that Ultron tried to slam dunk back into the earth recently, and that destruction combined with what happened in New York in Avengers 1 and basically the stuff that's happened in every third act of every Marvel movie and everything we've seen so far, it all means that the disasters have affected the entire planet. The cover says it's a framework for the registration and deployment of enhanced individuals, and if you remember, enhanced is the word Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. used to use for superpowered people before they started being all about Inhumans, and Ross is explaining that all superheroes need to be operating under the oversight of the UN.
You've operated with unlimited power and no supervision. That's something the world can no longer tolerate.
And while he means everybody, he mostly is talking about the Avengers themselves. In the Marvel Phase 2 Blu-ray box set, you get to see a page of the Accords that could maybe just be marketing, but it has this section for the Avengers themselves, although it also calls them Los Vengadores. But it's about them signing away their ability to operate independently. They'll now have to operate only if and when the United Nations wants them to. I also like that they don't know any other names for Vision, so they're just like, yeah, just sign the word Vision. I get it. You don't have a name. Now, obviously, that's not up Captain America's alley at the moment, considering the last time he trusted the government to run things, they turned out to be Hydra. And here's my favorite thing about this story for Steve Rogers here. If you take the Captain America movies as a trilogy, it started with him being basically the face of the military and of the government. He would even do those USO tours and stuff. But then in the second movie, he's struggling to deal with being a soldier in the modern day and having to deal with the current government. Now in this movie, we see the end of that arc, where he's completely broken away from that government and he's become the kind of rogue soldier that at one point he would have helped them hunt down. Though I don't think he's become so punk that he's painted his fingernails black and he's got a bunch of rings on from like Hot Topic or something. This is probably a glimpse at the hands of Black Widow or Scarlet Witch or somebody.
I know how much Bucky means to you. Stay out of this one. Please. You'll only make this worse.
You saying you'll arrest me?
We see more of Bucky on the run, and then Cap looks to be browsing incognito. So we're definitely much later in the movie here, which is why Black Widow doesn't know where he is anymore, and she's having to let him know that she'll arrest him if he keeps running. This is a really interesting contrast to the last time Cap had to go undercover, because Black Widow was actually hiding out with him then. And it's like, why can't they go back to the way they were then? They were making out, and they were like playing with laptops with that hipster guy at the Apple store.
I have the exact same glasses.
Wow, you two are practically twins.
Yeah, I wish. Specimen.
Oh, also, Black Widow is clearly around some drama herself, considering the fire trucks and the UN peacekeepers behind her, so it's probably after that UN explosion earlier, and considering she's asking Cap not to come to Bucky's aid here,
Stay out of this one. You'll only make this worse.
really sounds like everybody thinks Bucky was the one that blew up the UN meeting.
There will be consequences.
Captain,
You seem a little defensive.
well, it's been a long day.
Then, probably after Bucky and Cap have been on the run for a while, we see a bunch of masked German military types surround them, and it looks like Cap and Bucky actually maybe surrender to them, though it could be a trick. And then, a totally different moment, we see the glowing eyes of the billionaire playboy super genius who's having to battle the all-American superhero. And just for a second, it felt like we were maybe watching a different trailer. But no, this is Iron Man we're seeing, and two things to note here. One, damn, that looks like a really painful shiner. How much you want to bet that came from Steve at some point? But two, note how his helmet appears to have retracted behind his head. That's totally new to the Iron Man suit, and while it's not the craziest thing that Tony is still updating the suits, there are rumors that we might see the bleeding edge armor in this movie. And when it comes to Iron Man armor, that's one of the most badass versions. It's actually made up of like nanotechnology that is kind of activated by Tony's mind. It can retract into his skin, whatever. It has tons of amazing upgrades, and there's a chance that something about this armor could be really important to the plot, but we'll get back to that.
If we can't accept limitations, we're no better than bad guys.
That's not the way I see it.
Sometimes I want to punch you in your perfect teeth.
Then we see Cap and Falcon at maybe the new Avengers facility, but Cap's shield has been taken away, and if you look closely, you'll see also Falcon's wings. It seems like maybe part of the Accords are that the Avengers have to give up their tech and only get to use them when the UN says so. But also, if you freeze frame just right, you'll get a glimpse at two other characters. One is whoever Martin Freeman is playing, they haven't confirmed that yet, and the other one is Agent 13, Sharon Carter, who last we heard had left S.H.I.E.L.D. to join the CIA. Now, how the CIA is involved in all this, I have no idea, but that's interesting. But what's even more interesting than that is the fact that Sharon Carter is there at all because she has such a crazy impact on the Civil War plot in the comics, and while it looks like they are changing lots of stuff from the comics, her story might stay the same, and if it does, this movie is probably not gonna have a happy ending, and don't look that up if you don't like spoilers. Then we get some shots of Cap and Bucky prepping for battle, maybe the final one, and Tony telling Captain that he wants to punch him in his teeth, and he doesn't have the black eye then, but it kind of feels like maybe he's about to get it.
I just want to make sure we consider all our options. Because people that shoot at you usually wind up shooting at me too.
Then we get a great shot of Falcon's new duds, and the wings look like they've gotten a nice paint job, but that design and those colors is actually a reference to the look of Falcon's costume from the comics. Then we see Cap without his shield getting fired at from a chopper by this super serious dude with a super serious gun, and then it becomes clear that Falcon is also on the run, or he just really loves Captain's new look and really wants to be his best friend. But then, holy crap, Falcon gets the best kick in the trailer with this amazing freaking flying spin kick thing. So cool.
You know what's about to happen.
We then see Black Widow in her super tactical zippery bodysuit thing, and considering that they're at an airport now, which we're gonna see a lot of in a moment, what's about to happen is probably a huge fight between a lot of former friends, which is always so sad. Up next, we see Cap arriving at the IFID, which is the Institute for Infectious Diseases, and taking a look at the logo, it definitely looks like that's Africa. And you know what else is in Africa? Wakanda, where Black Panther's from, but we will get to him in a second. I'm also gonna point out that these two different uniforms on these wiped out soldiers could mean that this is the same location we saw Crossbones and crew busting into earlier, and the idea that they're busting into an infectious disease center is totally terrifying, because then that adds yet another threat to this movie. The bad guys unleashing a deadly virus on people. And this is why everybody needs to start getting along. There is way too much drama to deal with.
You want to punch your way out of this?
What do?
We fight.
Here we are at the airport scene that looks like it's gonna be one of the biggest sequences of the movie. In it, we see Tony standing with his bestie, War Machine, and he's definitely sporting that black eye, and this is also a really good moment to take a look at that new Iron Man suit that definitely has more layers to it than previous versions. And now, Tony's team is supposed to be representing the larger force here, but at least in this moment, they definitely look outnumbered with Captain's own version of the unofficial Avengers that are siding with him. We've got Hawkeye, Scarlet Witch, Falcon, and Bucky all behind Cap, and rumor has it that there's a chance right before this moment, Ant-Man was also running alongside them, and now he's just too small for us to see. And of course, you could make that argument for any moment in the trailer, but he might be there. Though you guys know, I don't think he's that black spot that some of you pointed out. I think that's a piece of gum. But anyway, it's a big team running at them, and Scarlet Witch now is definitely a flyer these days. It just doesn't feel like that side is the underdogs anymore. Though I'm not saying you should underestimate Team Iron Man, because you can see War Machine is doing some crazy damage with his rockets, and he's sending Hawkeye and Scarlet Witch running, and from what I can tell, also Black Panther's on their team too. He gets that like badass reveal shot where the sun is peeking out just a little bit, like making it look that much cooler. But I actually prefer his next shot more, where he pulls that crazy double leg drop drop kick on Bucky. Oh, and that suit that he's wearing, which also looks really cool, is covered in vibranium, which is that insanely strong metal that Cap's shield is made out of. It's actually a really rare metal, but the only place that has a crap ton of it is the home of Black Panther, Wakanda. That could actually be where we're seeing Black Widow a second later. And everything from here on out is complete insanity. You can tell because the opera singers are now on full blast. Now in the comics, Black Panther actually tries his best to stay neutral during Civil War, but here it definitely seems like he's after Bucky. Like after kicking him in the face a second ago, he starts chasing him down the street, and the Russos confirmed that Black Panther's got a really personal reason why he's in the movie. So in the comics, Black Panther, who's also known as T'Challa, his dad, T'Chaka, was the leader of Wakanda, and he got assassinated some long time ago, but it almost feels like maybe they could have changed some things around to make it so that Black Panther at least thinks that it could have been our Winter Soldier assassin friend who did it. Maybe. That's just guessing though. And if that's not bad enough, in Winter Soldier they kind of implied that Bucky could have been involved in Tony's dad's death too. So yeah, that guy's not catching any breaks. Now in this next shot, holy crap, Steve is holding down a helicopter. This is by far the strongest we've seen Captain America be in the Marvel movies. And I think this moment isn't just about looking cool, though it does. There's a reason that Cap is using more strength than he ever has here. And it's got something to do with what's inside that helicopter. And apparently even the actor Chris Evans was doing most of this stunt. So here in this moment, you can see he's really struggling, really straining. And my lord, his arms look like they have footballs in them. Like, damn dude, I'm actually worried about you. You're too jacked. And then check out this moment here. You can see Bucky's actually trying to pull Iron Man's arc reactor out of his suit. He's also mouthing something, and if I'm reading his lips correctly, it's a huge spoiler. So I'm actually not gonna say what I think he's saying, but feel free to figure it out at your own risk.
Sorry, Tony. You know I wouldn't do this if I had any other choice. But he's my friend. So was I.
Cap then runs through an exploding hospital, maybe the IFID again, and then in this next shot with Rhodey totally mangled, it looks like we're still at the airport, probably the aftermath of that battle, but look at his chest. His arc reactor has been ripped out of his suit. Did Bucky do that? And if so, why? It could just be because it's a sure way to stop someone wearing a Stark suit, but he was going after Tony's too. It just seems like it might be a little more than a coincidence. I don't know. And if you're wondering if War Machine is dead here, I don't know. I don't think so because they're showing it in the trailer. But it is well known that someone is supposed to die in this movie, and there's definitely more than one death in the comics, so I don't think anybody's actually safe. And finally, the most heartbreaking moment of this whole thing.
Sorry, Tony. You know I wouldn't do this if I had any other choice. But he's my friend. So was I.
Cap telling Tony that he's only doing this because Bucky's his friend, and Tony's like, yeah, we used to be friends too. Look at both their faces. They're all mangled and bruised, and it's like, damn guys, couples counseling, something, you gotta fix this. Oh, also, did you see in Tony's heads up display, you can see what looks like his old arc reactor design, which might be another clue that these arc reactors are really important. As the trailer wraps up, we see the brutal 2-on-1 fight where Iron Man is taking on both history's deadliest assassin and the world's greatest soldier. And in case that's not a bad enough combo, he's doing it in close quarters combat, which is both of their strengths and not at all what he's good at. And this is one of the best moments of the trailer, not just because of the amazing choreography that's going on, but the way Cap and Bucky are exchanging Cap's shield. There's a time in the comics when Bucky takes on the Captain America persona, and I feel like they're really trying to imply that he's totally capable of doing that now. Okay, so that may have been the trailer that was insanely packed with action, but there was a ton of stuff they didn't even touch on. Can I just remind everyone that Spider-Man is in this movie too? Now, based on this trailer, I'm starting to think that his part and Vision's part are probably closer to cameo length than full featured players, but still, we've got the two of them, Ant-Man, who we didn't see, Baron Zemo. There's just way more stuff that's gonna be in this movie. It's no wonder why they kept Hulk and Thor out of it. There's no room. Those two also might be able to kick everyone's ass, so another good reason to keep them out, but still, huge movie. Okay, my questions for you all. One, this movie really feels like two sets of buddies against each other, Captain America and Bucky up against the two other buddies, Iron Man and Rhodey. So what's going on with Falcon? Is he like, hey, aren't I your best friend too, Cap? Like, I feel like something could happen there, and there are rumors about somebody on one team switching to the other side. Could it be Falcon? Could it be Scarlet Witch? Could it be Black Widow? Who do you think it's gonna be? Who's gonna be the traitor? Two, what do you think Baron Zemo is gonna do in this movie? He's supposed to be the main villain and we didn't even see him, so what do you think he's up to? And three, what side are you on? I'm straight up torn because I would normally say Cap because it's cool that You know, he's like the little guy in this, but watching it, he seems like a badass and his team looks amazing. And Tony Stark looks so sad. I'm just completely torn. What do you think? Let me know your answers to those in the comments below, and also feel free to tweet your questions at me at Fimo. Let me know any moments that maybe I missed in the trailer. We've got so many great videos coming out and we're working so freaking hard to get them out, but we happen to just be a two-man team. It's me and Ted, so thank you so much for being patient. If you want to know when our new stuff is coming out, just follow @NewRockstars. We put updates there for when you can expect a new video, but thanks so much for hanging in there, guys. I've been Philip Molina. Thank you for watching. Civil War is a real thing that is really happening in a real movie, and that is so cool. All right, I will catch you next time. Bye.
X gon' give it to ya, he gon' give it to ya, X gon' give it to ya, he gon'